This is Jeff St Laurent. This is a live Tuesday call, and I'm excited today, as always, but even more so excited because we have a couple special guests, two clients of mine who are in that phase of retiring, quitting their job, whatever you want to call it, stopping their careers to pursue a full-time coaching practice. And today we're going to just do a live unscripted interview, just kind of raw, real, just to kind of give you some insight in terms of, what does it take to do this, because I work with a lot of mentoring clients, come across a lot of coaches as well and interact with them. And, as you know, I help coaches transition to a full-time business. And there's a point where, especially if you have a job, you have a career, however long you've had it for, or let's just say another source of income, even if it's another business, whatever it is, it's how do we actually take that leap and transition to a full-time business. So we got the two of them. I'm going to bring them on in just a minute. We're going to do a good 20-minute interview for each of them, and then we'll have a little bit of time at the end for the callers who called in live to kind of give a little feel for if they have any other further questions that they want to ask Rita or John. But before we get going, I do record all my live Tuesday calls. They are found in my university on my website, sellingcoaching.com. So you can check those out under the university. I always record them and I post them on Fridays. Right on my homepage, I also have a great resource for you. It's called the Ultimate Startup Guide for New Coaches. So you can always check that out as well. And then at the top of my website, sellingcoaching.com, there's an invitation to check out or join my private Facebook group. Got a great group of coaches in there. I'm proud to say we're closing in on 1,500 coaches. We're getting there closer and closer by the minute. So it's always excited. I'm using that platform, if you will, to kind of help coaches speak their voice. We do a lot with video and sharing their message. So check that out. Check out the resources I have for you on sellingcoaching.com. I'm flying through that because I want to get into the real deal today. And today is really all about how to leave your job and become a full-time coach. And like I said, I've got two of my great clients on there who are actually doing this right now. So I want to welcome John Neral. Welcome.
Hi, Jeff.
Great to have you, my friend. And Rita Hausken, welcome as well.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
So we're going to get to know you two a lot better. I'm going to start talking with John first, and then we'll kind of roll for a little while, and then we'll bring Rita on, and then we'll open up the lineup for everybody else. So John, we're going to start with you. Let's dive right into this. Before we lead up to you, what you're doing and things like that, briefly tell us a little bit about yourself and your career and how you got into coaching. So just real brief so people can get an idea of kind of like who you are and where you've come from.
Sure. I have spent my entire career in some type of educationally related field. I was a middle school classroom teacher, professional development specialist, supervisor, state assessment specialist, and now still do some work with an educational nonprofit. And I've spent my entire career in education. And when I got to this point about what was going to come next, I had worked as an instructional coach. I didn't know what professional coaching was all about. So when I found the same coach program, IPEC, the Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching, I was like, yeah, I want to see what this is all about. Let me kind of go in this direction. How does this end up helping me with my current position and job, and how do I add more value to my organization? And here I am on this call today getting ready to take a leap in a few months about actually leaving my job and starting a full-time coaching practice.
That's crazy, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
If you had told me a year ago I'd be doing this, I wouldn't have believed it.
So John, you're saying that been in education your whole life, your whole career. You looked into coaching and, like you said, found the school. So because you were thinking, and correct me if I'm off on this, you were thinking like this might be great to bring into your company that you work for.
Absolutely. I thought, how is there a way for me to help build an internal coaching program and be a part of that? And what I have found by asking the necessary questions and having the right conversations with people at my organization is it's not a possibility for me. And I say that in part because, and I say that because it's not about my ability as a coach or anything like that. It's that I'm too close to it. And one of my senior leaders had said to me, she's like, you'd be a great coach. Because the problem is that you know too much around here. So in order for you to get the buy-in and build the trust that you need in a coaching relationship, you're just too close to it here. And
gotcha.
When I heard that, I was like initially shocked at first, but then it was just a lot of gratitude because it just helped me make the moves that I needed to make.
Yeah,
right?
When you
so it's not that my organization doesn't have a coaching program. They actually hire a lot of external coaches. But because I know too many people and I'm too involved in the work, it's kind of hard for people to open up in that regard. And so that's another reason what has kind of predicated this move.
Definitely. So leading up to that, you were thinking, hey, I want to do this within this organization. The organization obviously values it, which is great, but for you to be able to do it there because you're too close doesn't work. So now what happens with your train of thought? Tell me how that started to lead you down this path.
Yeah, so actually just to back up a little bit, so prior to that, I was working with one of my coaches in the program, and she had asked me, and it was very early on in my program journey, and she said to me, have you ever given any thought to starting a full-time coaching practice? And I laughed at her. And I said, oh, absolutely not. I said, this will probably be some kind of part-time thing. I have a great job. I make a great salary. I love the stability of getting a paycheck every couple of weeks. Our industry is really good right now. I'm not worried about getting laid off or anything. I'm not going to do that. And the more and more I got into the program, the more and more I started coaching, the more and more I felt myself being pulled. And pulled in a way about not doing something different, but about doing something more and wanting to do more. So when I heard that conversation at work and realizing that part of my core value is to be a support and help people reach their optimal potential, if I can't do it there in that organization, then where do I get to do it? And that's where that whole idea about really starting to entertain about taking the leap and doing this full time, I couldn't get away from it. Like I'd be in the car driving to work going, what would it look like if I was a full-time coach? And then driving home from work going, what does it look like if I'm a full-time coach? And it just kept coming back to me in so many ways that the move just feels right.
Right. Out of curiosity, when that peer coach asked you, like, hey, have you ever considered your own business? And you laughed, and you're like, no way, I make good money, and my career is great, it's solid, I'm not getting laid off, blah, blah, blah. I'm curious, about how long ago was that?
8 months ago.
8 months ago. So 8 months ago, it's just like it never had crossed your mind, entrepreneurship. Coaching was, hey, I got a great career, I've got a great job, very secure, great money, love what I do. I'm loving coaching. I want to bring this in. Okay, now that's not an option. Ask that question, and now all of a sudden it changes the thought process, and you're like, well, what if I did do this? So take us from there. So 8 months ago, then this entrepreneurship pull of saying, like, wow, I want to help these people, and what would it look like being a full-time coach? Talk us through what happens from there.
Well, what happened from there was really kind of in part what started our work through the Mastermind Business Alliance. And when I joined that program, I just thought there was no negative side effects to it, right? Everything was good. When I went from that point about entrepreneurship is too risky and too scary, then to getting to a place about, well, entrepreneurship is still risky, but it's still exciting. and about being able to help more people than what I'm currently doing, and to be able to get my message out there about preparing leaders and helping people make career decisions and such, and being a leadership and career coach. The biggest block I've had, and you and I have talked about this separately, is around all the finance stuff. I couldn't get past the financial hurdle of, how do I give up this job with this really, really good salary to go be a coach and not have any kind of idea where the money is coming in from initially? And so where our work's been really, really helpful is that there were a couple of things. The first thing, in order to help me get over that block, was to figure out exactly what it was I was spending each month. So it wasn't that I put myself on a financial diet. I put myself into a financial journal. And so I journaled every single little thing that I was spending. And I tracked it all. Like, it was either with the credit cards, or I would ask for a receipt for stuff, and I did it in a Google Doc. So I knew exactly how much I was spending for household expenses, for car payment, for entertainment, for dining out and food, and all those kind of things. And I've done this over several months, where I have a really, really accurate picture of what is the bare minimum I need to make each month in order for me to make my bills. The second thing was to have a conversation with my husband, Richard, and to talk with him about what this meant for us, for me to go ahead and pursue this coaching business, and what that looked like for our household expenses, and that conversation. And I'm really, we can have these kind of conversations. We don't have to feel like we walk on eggshells. So to have his support and to know where we stand financially with all of this, that was really helpful. The third thing was in working with you about how do I get in front of people? What is my whole plan look like for actually launching the business? And in that, what has really helped is that if I stay at my current job and I pursue this as a coach, I have a limited number of hours each week to devote to coaching. And that was where I wanted to spend my time. That's where I looked at it and said, I get to do this at the end of the day. Like, I get to work with a client, or I get to work on, my marketing efforts, and I get to do all this. And I found myself saying, I have to go to work today. And that just told me that where my energy and my passion were sitting really wasn't with my organization. It was with my coaching practice.
Gotcha. So it led up to the point where you started getting really detailed with the finances. And when you I appreciate you saying, like, you journaled, or you documented everything, like every penny you spent, to really track. Where, like, before that, how detailed were you in terms of tracking your finances?
Not very. It was kind of like, I knew at the end of the month, if I had to pull money out of my savings account to take my bills, I spent too much. But Gotcha. It was like, okay, well, that's there. I'll just pull, a couple bucks here, kind of a thing. But this just it opened my eyes to see where I was spending certain money, and where I could consciously make a decision to cut that back because it wasn't necessary, or it wasn't needed in that regard. Gotcha. So really getting detailed with that. I'm a data person. Yeah, I'm a data person. I taught middle school math for 14 years, and so I'm all about the data. So to have data doesn't lie, right? So staring at it in front of me and going, oh, look, there's so much money for the household expenses and so much money for the car, and then there's all this other stuff, just gave me a really, really good picture of things. Okay. It helped prepare me to take that leap. Yeah, so obviously for someone listening, like, I'm thinking is a big nugget takeaway is that no matter where you are, and a perfect example of someone that's not really tracking, expenses, et cetera, but it's like, all right, well, you were just gauging it by a general thing. If I have to pull from savings, I spent too much. But it was just
right? Going from that to like tracking every receipt, every penny you spend, super vital to be able to understand. Because I remember in our sessions, I was like, well, you got to know what is that bottom line number of money that you need every month.
Yeah, and it was honoring that process to say, like if I went through the McDonald's drive-thru and all I got was a coffee, and that coffee was $1.06, and I'd go, can I have the receipt for that, please? And I would take it and I would put it in my pocket, and I got home at the end of the day. I opened up my spreadsheet and I logged it all in, because a dollar is a dollar. But if I do that 30 times a month, that's $30. That's $360 a year. That's a lot of money. So it was really helpful for me to see all that.
So we got to get real with this, and people listening, these are the big things I want to say is you've got to get real with this, because just like entrepreneurship with your business, you've got to get real with your business, and you've got to know what you're earning, what you need each month, where it's coming from, how you're going to get that, and a lot of the answers aren't necessarily as black and white, but knowing our finances is so important. So thanks for sharing that piece. And then John, you were talking about how you were starting to go to work and feeling like you have to go to work. It was something, that career that you had loved, and now it's all of a sudden less and less enjoyable for you.
Right.
What talk to us about like what started bringing you to the point where, okay, entrepreneurship, it's pulling you, it's calling you, right? But it's still, you're not doing anything about it. You're still trying to start your coaching business. You're trying to do it in conjunction with work. Take me to that place where you start to get like, I think I got to do this.
Yeah.
Or you know what I'm talking about, like that point where you start to really look at it.
I vividly remember having a conversation with my boss, who's the vice president of my group, and she's an amazing woman, and just have so much respect for her. And we've done all this work around agreements and conversations and stuff. So to go into our office, and we were having this meeting, and it was just the two of us, and I asked her flat out, I said, I'm asking you a question. I know you're going to give me an honest answer. I promise I'm going to say thank you at the end of it. What does my career path look like here, given my strengths and my skill sets and what I want to do here with them? And she gave me a very honest answer, and what she told me was, she said, your path here is horizontal. It's not upward. There's not room for you to advance in the current track you're doing. If you want to jump to another side of the business and pursue that, that's a different conversation. But if you're going to stay in this role that you're currently in, she goes, there is no promotion potential for you. And she goes, not that I've tried. There is no promotion potential for you. Mm-hmm. And I looked at her and I said, thank you. Because for me, I'm not the kind of person where I'm going to get comfortable and sit in a position and know that there's not something more, or there's more for me to be leveraged or utilized in that way. And I felt myself getting kind of stagnant. And I had to look within at that point and say, I'm 100% responsible for my career. I get to decide what it is that I want to do, and I have some control in this situation about what my next career step is. I talked about it with my peer coaches in the program, to sit there and go, you know what, I have a lot of gratitude for the job I have. It is just not where I want to be a few months down the road. And so that was just such a big conversation to simply say, yeah, it's time for me to leave and to do something more. And to do something more where I get to have a greater impact on the people who hear my message, and I get to work with day in and day out, and in a coaching relationship that just gets to help so many more people than where I'm at.
That's huge. So it sounds like that conversation with your boss was a really tough one to have, but it was a really brutally honest one.
Absolutely.
Which did a lot for you. So now, like, as we got 4 or 5 minutes or so, but talk about what has been we'll leave the last minute or so to like culminate to like what's actually happening and what you're planning on doing. But
Sure.
but before that piece would get you to that place where you create the decision to actually, I'm done with my job and I'm doing something about it officially. What were the hardest moments and the biggest things you had to overcome, the biggest challenges for you, and even right now that you're facing as you do this?
That's such a great question. I mean, one of the biggest challenges is, and I am such a people person, not to be cliche-ish, but I work with some great people, and to know that I'm making a decision that's going to step away from all of that and working with them, that's a hard decision because I'm really blessed. I work with some great people. There's also the structure. I mean, you get up in the morning, you drive into work, you spend your time there, you drive home, and now it's the hurdle of, okay, so I get up and I walk across the hall to my office,
Right.
and so what does that look like? And another exercise that you had helped me with was I did a schedule, because we say the schedule's your boss, right?
Yep.
So I blocked out the whole schedule and like, here's my coaching time and here's, dinner and blah, 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 and put everything in there so I know that when I take the jump, that's what my day looks like. And truth be told, I took a vacation day yesterday because I needed to work on the website and get some information done with that. And I was like, great, here's my Monday coaching day. What do we do? And went right down the list and honored the schedule because I know that I need structure. I know that I need that kind of stability in that. So for me to hold the schedule like that is pretty important. And the other thing is just kind of, quelling all of the voices inside your head that come up and say, are you good enough? Are you going to make enough money? How successful are you going to be and everything, and just clearing them all out and just doing what I know I absolutely want to do at this point in time in my life and trust the process.
So let's wrap this up and ask you what was the action that made this real? Because otherwise it's just talk, right?
Right.
What's making this real?
The first time I ever said, I'm not happy in my job, I'm not feeling fulfilled, and I need to do something more. The first time I said that to someone, when I actually got to hear those words in the air, that's when it got real. That's when it was like, you just said it out loud. This wasn't in your head. And that conversation with my boss made it real. The conversation I had at home about making this decision made it real. And finally, to actually put a date on the calendar that says, I plan to leave my job on this date, made it absolutely real.
And now, what's the plan that makes this actually happen? November 3rd is the date.
November 3rd is the date. I'm in the process of getting my work kind of wrapped up so I can transition that over to someone. I need to have that conversation with my boss to actually say, look, I'm gonna move in this direction and I'm gonna transition out, and let's talk about an exit strategy and a plan and everything. That's gonna happen in the next few weeks, and it's not gonna come as a surprise either. So I'm not worried in that regard. But I mean, there were other things too, and I know we got to get to Rita and stuff. I mean, there were other things too, like, talking with the accountant and talking with the attorney, because I wanted to set this all up as an LLC and getting like the business logistics and stuff of it. And, you see John Neral Coaching LLC and you're like, okay, that's tangible. That's real. That's another step toward making this all the reality. And it's moving pretty quick, which is kind of exciting.
Yeah, definitely, right? But there's a lot of other behind-the-scenes things, too, that, like you said, the LLC, the accountant, things like that, that's making it real. And what I'm hearing is that you're you've started to talk it out loud. I remember the conversation you and I had on a one-on-one mentoring call, and you're like, okay, how do I do this? And I'm like, do what?
Yeah.
You're like, how do I quit my job? It was a great conversation because it's like I could almost tell you're like, am I really actually saying this out loud? Am I really like talking to Jeff about this?
Right.
And that's when it was like, we got to just be bottom line. It's got to be black and white. I mean, what is it really about, right? It's about you pursuing your dream, but bigger than that, it's like, what are your big concerns? What are your financial responsibilities? You know what I mean? And last thing, John, just so we know, how old are you?
I'm 48.
I was trying to give people like an idea of age range and how long you've been in your career for.
In total, for 25 years.
Okay.
I've been in some kind of education job for 25 years.
All right, so just give you an idea of where this person's coming from, the career that they're leaving, like you said, the people, the structure, the security, the great paycheck, all those pieces to pursue the dream, but then the reality of what he had to kind of work through. And obviously there's a lot more to that, but it's just I wanted people to kind of get a feel for what that was like. So John, thank you for sharing what you did.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for the great questions.
Yeah, I'm going to bring Rita on now. Rita, are you there?
I am. And thank you, John. It was beautiful to listen to you.
Hi, Rita. Thank you. Looking forward to hearing you.
This is great. So let's bring Rita on, and then we'll go for about 20 minutes or so, and that should give us a good 10 minutes or so at the end of the call for people that are listening live. If they want to throw some questions out there, or just congratulate Rita and John. But anyways, Rita, let's jump right into it. So kind of same as John, give us a brief snapshot of kind of like who you are and what brought you at least into coaching to begin with.
Yeah, right. Well, first of all, I'm actually Norwegian and based in Norway, so it's slightly smaller than the U.S. My coaching interest actually started about 12 years ago, and I decided to do coaching and leadership at a private university. So I brought that concept into my job. I've been with my corporation for 20 years and built it up from a local brand to a global brand. And as a director, I used the coaching skills every day with my teams around the world. And what was also really fascinating was I saw how powerful coaching was with my clients to find the core reason for purchasing our things. So basically I've been there for 20 years, and I have been used to traveling around the world, and I decided that after 20 years it was time to change. I have had my own coach several coaches for many years, but the coach that I currently have, I've had for a year and a half. And we started to talk about purposes and my core values. And when I realized that my core values was freedom and learning, I started to understand why I didn't feel fulfilled in my job anymore, even though being really, really high up in the organization, I felt there was something out there. There was something something more purposeful that I could actually do. And I know that sounds a bit like cliche thing, but I really felt that. So I started to journal a lot about it, and I realized that I gave myself a closing date that I would leave my company in April 2019. And my coach, she asked me and said, okay, where did that number come from? I said, I don't know. I realized that it was kind of, at that time, about 3 years down the road, and it was kind of a bit far away, so I didn't really have to deal with it. It was just something out there. And then she said, we talked about it, and I realized that actually to bring the coaching practice more up in a different way, a different manner, became more and more powerful. And I started to do the same as John, to do my homework and figure out what type of programs are actually out there that is in alignment with who I am. And IPAC really stood out. I did a lot of research, and it was like, IPAC was the thing for me. So I decided to join, and I joined that in November 2016. And so on a parallel basis with doing the IPEC program, I continued with my coach, which, I mean, I also have to say, a coach without a coach is not probably the best idea, at least not for me. I mean, it's amazing how fast that takes you forward. And then I also moved into the MBA program, and the conversation that you and I, Jeff, have had, that is basically my relationship with coaching.
Yeah, and so 20-year career in what was the oil and gas industry, is that it?
Yeah.
Right, so high up position, getting paid well, loving it initially, but then losing your fulfillment and like almost your purpose with it, doing the work around it, leading you to coaching and realizing, wow, this is, I've worked with the coach, but now I start to understand this for myself.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Talk about now, so that brings you more to the current space, the current day, like within the past, 6 months, a year or so?
So basically, so the ASSET program started then in November. Actually started in August last year, so it's about a year ago I started. And I went back into my journal, and I started to see that in January, I clearly wrote that this is my final year. My main title for my journal was The Year of Changes, but I didn't know what that entailed. But the more I was coaching my peers, the more I was getting involved, the more I knew that this is really what I want to do. The big change came when I realized the physical difference from doing my current job as a director, where I was so exhausted every single day that the first thing I had to do was go home and just take a bath and try to find myself. And I was so exhausted. And when I started to coach, I realized that I was so energized. I was so happy. I was like, the emotion that I explained it to my coach, because she asked, so how do you feel? I said, actually, it's like giving birth, being in love, being filled with energy all at the same time. That is how powerful I feel my purpose for coaching right now. So that was a big shift for me. My physical energy level changed, and I made my decision.
When you say you made your decision, like tell me, what do you mean by that?
Basically what happened was, okay, to take it really into detail, when I started to show up for work, I realized that I wasn't really there. I had been working very, very dedicated with high energy for a long time. And I realized when I walked through the door, that wasn't me anymore. And I could not live with that anymore. I could not go to work and think, okay, it's a great paycheck. But I didn't show up. And so what I did, I went to my CEO, and I told him what I was up to, and I wanted to have his opinion on leadership coaching. And I was then very keen on, wow, maybe I could do corporate coaching within my global unit, because there's a big need. And basically what he said was, Rita, whatever you want, I'll give it to you, because you can't leave. And the minute he said that, I realized this is the time to leave, because I know that I'm going to be with something because what I can do for other people, not because somebody else needs me. I don't want that. So I told him that I would probably, change my path around September, but I resigned on 3rd of July. I just resigned, yeah. Wow. And but I had planned it a long time. It just came earlier than I thought.
Right. So this is interesting. So you went to your boss, you had the conversation, you were very upfront. They basically said, I don't care what it takes, we want you. Yeah. We don't want you to leave.
Yeah.
And in that moment you knew, I'm definitely leaving.
Yeah.
Because of the purpose greater than.
Yeah.
So you're done. Like July 3rd was your date. it's gone. It was, a year plus from when you said it 3 years ago, right?
Yeah. It's interesting, actually. So I took it 2 years before I had kind of put it in my journal that I would leave. So it was 2 years earlier.
Right. So people listening to this is really a 2-year journey leading up to what just happened, right? So it's not just, you woke up one day or a few months later, you're like, I'm going to quit.
Oh, no. Oh,
right?
no. No. You don't leave a multiple figure dollar salary if you really don't know that what you're doing is, you don't know the financial income you're going to come, but it definitely gives you more. You think about that. And to say that, you know that as well, Jeff, because I reached out to the IP community. I said I was kind of ready to leave the job in January as well, but I felt, let's reach out. And that's when you recorded a video to me
Yes.
and asked me a lot of questions. And I went back and I really went through it, and I talked to my financial advisor. We went through everything, so I knew, okay, I have 2 years savings that I can do this. And then what I also did was I then stopped spending more than that I could live on, so I could see that that is tangible for me and I live comfortable with it, and I've done that. So for me, it's important to have the finances in order. But it's also important to step out of that box and be daring and just say, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, so with the preparation you're talking about, there's that financial preparation. So it's not only just like, hey, I'm earning great money, but it's like, okay, what is this actually going to look like? How am I going to live under these certain situations? And, people listening, whether you have a career where, let's just say, and it's a judgment, what's good money, what's not great money, right? But at the end of the day, if you're considering someone, if someone's listening and they're like, I'm not even making great money and I'm barely earning enough to get by, versus a situation where you're earning more than enough to get by in a fantastic salary, each situation isn't better than the other, So if you're looking to replace a $50,000 a year salary versus if you're living off of a multiple six-figure year salary, $250,000 a year type salary, it all represents its own challenges, right?
Definitely.
Right, in a very different way. So there's
absolutely.
So if someone's listening to that, like, you're earning good money and you have 2-year savings, but it's like the preparation along the way. You created this situation for yourself.
Yes, it is actually the same. It really doesn't matter. I think what happened to me was that big shift when I realized that I came home exhausted. I was so exhausted, I just couldn't move. And when I realized that when I was working with things that I truly love, I came back energized. And I realized that I will be able to make a living based on the fact that I have so much energy. I have so much to give. So based on just that, I knew that even though I was in a different position, that would have been the breaking point much earlier for me as well. As the quickly I understood that the energy level was in danger in my current job, it's time to leave because you're ruining yourself. And that was important to me.
Yeah, so you're saying you looked at the value of saying like, hey, this job's basically killing me. Yeah. And you realized you couldn't be in that job for very much longer.
No.
And recognizing that and recognizing the value of like, hey, I'm going to be able to, I know I'm going to be able to make a living because the energy that I receive from coaching and doing it on my own, as much as there's a lot of risks involved, et cetera, and a lot of unknowns, I know I'm going to be able to be successful because of how I feel when I do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's about doing a few rounds with yourself. I went a few rounds with myself to understand that, okay, making sure that this is truly what I want. And also what I did was to see, okay, is there any other places I can create income? And I realized that, yes, I had something I could rent out, which for me a year ago would be like, oh, my God, I would never rent out my summer house. And now I realize that, wow, this has given me a fantastic opportunity to see things in a different perspective. Rent it out and see if I can earn some money on something.
Interesting. So you're truly becoming an entrepreneur.
Yes.
I'm curious, had you ever thought of yourself, a 20 career as an employee, moving high up on the ladder, doing great things like that? Had you ever considered yourself an entrepreneur?
Well, yes and no, because I was an entrepreneur from when I was 20 to 27. I ran a highly successful free restaurant business with 80 employees. It was really cool, but I got really tired of it, and I thought I would never go back. And the reason I'm going back now is it's actually about doing it solo. It's about not growing big. It's not about anything else. It's me. This is about me. It's about to grow a big business. It's to grow what I love to do. That's why I'm going back. So somewhere down the line, I think, yes, I wanted to become an entrepreneur again. But this is the right thing.
Yeah, it's the right thing, and it's different because this is personal for you, what you're building, right?
Yeah,
it's actually personal because who you're helping is that person that you were, the tired executive woman who's, bleeding basically.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
And so you're taking that exhaustion, et cetera, and you're seeing all your colleagues, et cetera, saying like, hey, what are you doing? And just by stepping out and taking this path, you then become that role model to be able to help them. Tell us how, with the plan that you had and the 2-year path and the savings and then changing your expenses to live off of, the way you did, talking to your financial advisors, the path you talked about that created the decisions in your head where you just, the hard conversations with your boss, et cetera. How did you get past the voices, the negative self-talk or all that stuff, right? Like John was talking a little bit about that, like, because I know we've had some of those conversations in our mentoring calls, but because it's great. I've got 2 years savings, and hey, that's great, but still, you've got 2 years savings. 2 years goes by pretty quick. So, even if someone listening, I say if someone's listening to that, don't be like, oh, well, she's got 2 years savings. Like, trust me, that ain't around very long.
No.
So it's nice to have, but it doesn't make it easier, But bigger than that, like, how did you get past the voices in your head and all that crap, if you will, to actually pull the trigger and do it?
Yeah, definitely. I think the big voice that came up in my head was constantly that, but Rita, you're not really good enough. Come on, you're never going to be amongst the really super good coaches, and who would like to pay you? And, of course, it did create an enormous feeling when you got the first client and it came out of your own creation, who I met on the plane. And so that was at least kind of a confirmation that financially they would actually like to pay me, and she paid up front for 3 months. So that was a big step for me. The other thing was, when you do something, you have the famous vulnerability hangover. And, of course, when I resigned, I woke up and thinking, okay, what did I just do? I just deleted 20 years of my life. But then I went back again, and I thought about it, and I brought up my inner voice, who's very, very supportive, who is bringing me forward, that think about what really creates energy. And just by going through it mentally gave me energy. The other thing that happened was, and I also actually sent out a video in the community, was that I was actually sitting home one day and I was working on the coaching business, and I got so stressed. And I freaked out because I thought that type of stress was related to my corporate job. And I realized that I own that myself. It is mine. And when I realized that, just own it and feel it and feel the pain, I realized that isn't it much better to go through the pain for something you really want to do than to go through the same pain for something that you actually don't want to do anymore? Because that's a double whammy. So touching that was so powerful. I was freaking out. I couldn't breathe. I was so stressed out. And then I said, you know what, Rita, this is beautiful. This stress is yours. You own it 100%. How can I, deal with this? So I got that kind of vulnerability hangover there, and then I walked through it, and I came out very strong. And it was just amazing. And that was 3 days before I was going to inform my team, because I informed the team last week. And that was great.
Wow.
Tell them.
So I just want to capture what the power of what you just said, because at the end of the day, I want to boil it away from the circumstance. I'll get to that in a second. But what I just heard is that you were able to see something and feel something, and through the execution of realizing what it was, it shifted your perspective, right? And in this case, it was like the stress of your business was something that you owned because it was your business. And it's like, wouldn't I rather, stress over something that I want to do and that I want to build and that's completely mine, versus stress over something like the other thing, like a job, that I don't want to do and I don't want to be, and that's not getting anywhere or doing anything that I want.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
And so you put those two things, and it was like, boom, this explosion of perspective.
Exactly.
Yes.
It was amazing.
So for someone listening, often, yes, there's the black and white of the financials and things like that, but a lot of it can come through, and you heard this with John as well, is he had the conversation with his boss and moving that horizontal ladder, so to speak, and et cetera. There's perspectives that both of these people have had, and I found that true for myself as well when I made the leap years ago, is the perspectives that really start to shift. And I'm hearing what that does is it made all the voices and all those other things less powerful, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think what was the magic behind it was that what could have actually made me fall down made me stronger, because I was willing to really look at it deep in the eyes and say, what's going on right now?